It was an icy day on the island of Sodor. The engines were working very hard. They didn't mind the cold because they had toasting hot fireboxes to keep them warm. That evening, the Fat Controller came to the sheds. He said. They said eagerly, and the Fat Controller drove away. Tease Thomas. Percy whistled nervously. Sniffed James. Tease Thomas. Said James. James knew Jack Frost wasn't scary, but poor Percy wasn't so sure. Percy shivered. Meanwhile, James puffed along his route. He thought. Percy made his last delivery. The station master was very pleased to see him. He cried. Percy said. So Percy's driver parked him in his siding with only a lantern for company. Said Percy. Chuckled his driver. And then his driver and fireman went home to bed. Late at night, the icy wind howled. It started to snow. Soon Percy's face was so cold, an icicle hung from his nose. Percy stuttered, but it didn't sound like Percy. It was so cold, he could hardly make a sound. At last, James was on his way back to the sheds. In the fog, he saw shadows, in strange and scary shapes. He whispered nervously. Muttered Percy icily. Cried James, and he raced away as fast as his wheels could carry him. He didn't stop until he got back to the sheds. The next morning, Elizabeth brought plenty of coal. Elizabeth shoved to Percy. The firelighter started Percy's fire. Soon his ice mask melted away. Tooted Percy happily, and soon he was as warm as toast. When Percy arrived at the sheds, James was bragging to the other engines. James huffed, teased Percy, and all the engines whistled, including James. But Percy's was the loudest whistle of all.